Hello and welcome to Coffee with Candice. I'm your host, Candice Mama. Today's guest is extraordinary in every single way. Her name is Chen Lizra. She's a somatic intelligence coach, a TED speaker with nearly 10 million views, an award-winning social entrepreneur, and so much more. In this conversation, Chen and I will discuss how trauma can stay in the human body, and Chen teaches people how to release it. She has been gracious enough to gift each and every one of us her executive training program that will get you started on somatic intelligence. Be sure to check it out in the description box below. And also, this interview had a few sound glitches. I'm terribly sorry about that. I hope it doesn't interrupt your learning. However, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And without further ado, here's Chen.
Well, hello, gorgeous.
How are you?
I'm doing good. It's so nice to finally meet you.
My gosh, you have no idea. Firstly, you're just as gorgeous as in all your videos, obviously. But I've just been so excited to meet you. So I'm going to start us off by just saying you are one of the females, the first real people, that I saw outside of a movie or outside of the ramp that really exuded this beautiful feminine power, this strength, this elegance, this, I know you refer to the term seduction, but that's exactly what it is. And I absolutely love it. And so I wanted to first start by just saying thank you. Thank you for exposing me to that kind of feminine power and feminine embodiment that you just carry so, I don't want to say with ease, because I know you had quite a journey getting here, but right now you carry it with just so much poise and ease. And I wanted to start there.
Thank you. And I think it's just that what you mean to say is that it's uncomfortable in my own skin.
Oh,
right. It's just such I get this a lot when I kind of hear comments from people and they go like people write about me things and they say, I love how authentically she is and how she's living her truth. And I mean, these are not my sentences. I'm not talking about myself, giving myself confidence, but but I get it, because I think that I was so lost, like truly, like so lost and so hurt inside, and I really lost my sense of home inside. The fighting to come back, I found it. I got goosebumps just now saying that. I got home in such a profound way with myself, and I'm reluctant to give up my truth. From integrity to ethics to who I am to what I believe. Like, I'll walk away from a deal that has tons of money because it doesn't align with who I am. I'll align my business in such a way that I'll only go to places that really represent the things that I stand for. People that, don't work with a massive ego, even if that means that the business stays smaller for a while. But I think the long term, it grows bigger because it resonates on such an authentic vibe that when people feel that, they can feel you. They can feel who you're being out of your choices. They go like, I want that. How did you do that? And that's exactly what I teach them.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And there's so much you said that I want to unpack. You speak about the journey of coming home to yourself. And I want us to start there. You have an incredibly profound and sad at some point story. And would you mind just telling us a little bit about that, a little bit about your journey growing up?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing that I had to go through in life to date, touch on wood, the last one that I'll have to go through, but when I was 11 years old, my mom got mentally sick. She was manic depressive. And I was very connected to my mom. And one day she started losing it, like really losing it. And she was this beautiful, caring, loving person who loved her children so much. And she started hurting us, not knowing what she was doing because she lost control and it got pretty bad. And, over the years, it's been, I mean, even just being 11, and I remember walking around after she was taken to a mental hospital and locked up for a year, and I couldn't see her. And one day my mom was gone, and I was walking the streets, and I was just crying, and there was so much pain in my body, and I was just crying. I just wanted my mom. I wanted my mom. And I remember like crying so much like that on the streets, just wanting my mom. and she was gone, you know, and my dad was working 3 jobs at the same time to fund us, and he wasn't there in that sense. He did his best, but I was by myself. There was nobody there, and there was nobody to really support me emotionally on a regular basis. There was nobody to talk to. There was no one to help me with the pain, and the pain was bigger than my body, you know. And I didn't know how to release it either. I didn't know how to be with the complexity of the feelings that I had, like, you know, feeling that you don't want to see your mom, you don't want her, and then feeling guilty about it and feeling shame, and like there's so many emotions there to unpack. I love the word unpack they use. And I didn't know how to unpack them. So I was just like, you know, I went into this spiral. I got hit so much because kids made fun of me at school for my mom being mentally sick, that I'll be crazy like her. And then I almost lost my friends. And then a friend walked out on me because I was sharing and sharing, and it was too heavy for a kid her age to hear all these stories. So she walked down on me. And that was one her too many. And I locked up and I left this huge mask on my face. I was like, everything's great. And it was like I was an A student, and I was like in sports, and I was competing, and I was having suicidal thoughts, and it was like that for 10 years. And I spiraled and spiraled and spiraled until I hit rock bottom. And it was either live or die. There was nothing left. Mm. And we know what I chose because I'm still here.
And wow, I mean, we are grateful that you chose life, but I mean, I think many of us cannot relate. We can't relate to having such central figures in our life change in front of us, and the impact that has. Because I mean, even your father, right? He didn't have the tool set to deal with what had just happened, and so he couldn't be as effective to you as you may have needed him to be. And that loss of a female feminine figure in one's life, I mean, that must have been crushing. Because where do you learn your femininity from? Where do you learn, you know, vulnerability? Where do you learn how to, you know, be at peace with oneself when you're still surviving from the age of 11? So when did this breakdown happen? When did you feel like I'm feeling like I have to end it and I've got to choose between life and death?
At the age of 20. Like seriously, it was like a decade of this. And then I hit rock bottom, and it wasn't just the fact that I lost my mom and she teaches you all the femininity. It was that now there was a problem with boundaries because my mom was crossing my boundaries, and over 10 years I couldn't protect myself because I was a child. And then trust broke, and then reality broke because she would tell me things that never happened. I didn't know what to trust and what not. And as a child, you don't know to distinguish between what is being said to you by a sick parent when someone is okay. You just think you can't trust anybody because someone that you trust, that you were supposed to lean on for survival, like hurts you. So everything in my foundation broke. I didn't know it at the time, but this is why it took so long. Also, it took me 10 years to come out of it afterwards, 10 years to rebuild, because every time I rebuilt a brick, everything, it was like a tower of cards, and we put, fix something like, and then the whole thing will fall. And it was like, no, it's like, try it again, fix another brick. And eventually I had to rebuild my whole foundation. And that's also why I have something to give now, because to fix what got broken, I had to work so hard and figure out, like, almost like walk inside of a labyrinth, like for 10 years, and figure out everything, like how it works and how to sort it out and how to make it right again and heal. And I think the hardest thing I was actually with sensuality was the part about being vulnerable in front of people. I had a hard shell for a long time, a really hard shell. And inside I was really vulnerable and to cover up for it because I got hurt so hard. It was this hard shell, and it took a long time to work through the things that I found in Cuba to actually bring that guard down.
That is, I think so many people can listen to you and say, in their own way, shape, or form, they've struggled with either boundary setting because they grew up in an abusive home, or they unfortunately lost a parent, or they experienced a severe trauma that didn't allow them to have boundaries or even understand the idea of boundaries. And I mean, you have an extreme case of that, whereby someone's so close to you, it wasn't in their control. However, it still had to force you as an 11-year-old girl to start figuring out, what is my reality, what isn't, how do I deal with this person, how don't I deal with this person. And so in your journey to finding like boundaries in your journey to finding vulnerability. You said it took you 10 years. So what did that process look like? Because I think when people hear 10 years, they're like, oh no, that's too much work. That's too much time, you know? So how did, after making that decision to heal, how did that journey look?
First of all, let me say that I don't think there's such a thing as putting a timeline on it. It depends on what you're committed to in life. When I made the decision to not die but live, it was, I promised myself that I'm going to keep going till I'm going to find the way. And the promise was till I find the way. If it would have taken 20 years, 30 years, I don't know what. I mean, and there were moments where things were great because I would find answers, and there were moments where it was completely hopeless. Like I would call my friend and would go like, am I ever going to make it? Like it's falling apart again. She'd be like, keep going, keep going. And, you know, and it wasn't an easy journey, but man, I wouldn't change a thing today. You know, in all honesty, you know, and I think it's important to say that because someone goes, oh my God, it's 10 years. But I mean, look at the life that I have today. And, you know, when I finished, that's another thing I want to say is that when I finished those 10 years and something clicked, you know, every time you're sitting, you're looking for the sound, you go like, I'm going to fall apart or not. It falls apart. And you're like, ah. And you're like, you fall into this hopelessness. And I go like, I listen for the click of it falling and it doesn't fall. I'm like, oh, it's not falling apart. It just came together. And it's just like, oh my God, it's working. You know, it was like, it was so exciting. It was like, whoa. And then 5 minutes later, it took exactly 5 minutes. I was like, that's it. Like, I'm going to live now a plain life of like, life is okay. It took me freaking 10 years of suicidal thoughts, another 10 years to fix this. And now I'm going to live an ordinary life. I was like, no, freaking hell. I created a new intention. I was like, spectacular. I want spectacular. If I'm going for it, I'm going all the way. And this is actually how I found, you know, the treasure in Cuba, because I didn't stop at okay. I wanted more. I wanted the fairy dust magic.
Oh man, and the magic is what you found, because I think that magic is in your essence. It's in who you are. And I think, you know, whenever I'd listen to your interviews, because you've done a couple of interviews, you do your own, you know, videos, and I love watching them and just seeing, you know, how beautifully you move, which is something we're going to speak about. And when you started looking for that next thing, that thing that was going to make your life spectacular, can you tell us a below about that? Because I think we live in an age, especially with social media, where someone is going to come across your page and say, oh, I want that life. I want that, you know, and I bet you she had it like this. And they paint this image of a reality that doesn't exist. But I love when you speak about, you know, what it took to actually find this purpose, to find this vision that you are now living and helping the rest of us live.
Yeah, first of all, I think it really comes down to how you portray yourself. And if you look at my Instagram, there's a lot of stuff that's Instagram, like a business, and we show what I do, but you'll also find a lot of stuff that's raw and rough. You know, you'll see me sandboarding in the Sahara. You'll see like, you know, it's like, I was parachuting like with a boat attached to a boat in Bali, and like, so I don't believe in the whole thing of creating an image and living in that image. There is a certain image, but I think that image is me, for me. And you'll see me go on my Instagram and without makeup, and I'm just like, the hair is kind of frizzy and messy, and some days I'm polished and some days I'm not, because that's the way I live life. So I don't live up to like some kind of an image where I have to constantly be like that polished person. I think that I am like that, so I show it like that. And then if someone likes it, great, and if they don't, also great, because that's who I am. So what do you want me to do? Like, it's just what it is, you know. So that's about image. And I'm sorry, I forgot the other question because I took the image side.
No, I love that you took that time to clarify. No, I was just speaking about actually finding this niche market for yourself, this career that is different. It's very different. I mean, I've never heard of a somatic intelligence coach before, and that's what you're doing. So how did you get to this point where you knew, I need to teach people about this particular subject?
Really pick it if it's me. That's a purpose. So, you know, I was an animator. That was my first job. I used to make cartoons. I was a character animator, which is like an actor in denial, and a kid who doesn't want to grow up forever, and a combination of the two. And then I just, you know, and that was right after living in Japan and studying Zen Buddhism and meditation, and the contrast between burnout and complete balance and mindfulness was just extreme. And after 7 years of doing this, I quit the industry and I went back and I did business school. And I got to business school because I went to a Tibetan silent monastery and I was meditating and I was asking for the answers. And the answer that came was business school. And it was completely non logical because I was an artist. So I surrendered because that was my path and that was my truth. So I surrendered to it and I went into business school. And it's really interesting because before I went to that monastery, I created a binder called Getting the Life You Want. And I worked on it for a year and I tried many things and I kind of defined like the direction that I find life. I still have that binder. And in that binder is a third of it is my life now, which is really interesting to see. And I didn't even know that what I wrote there, how deep that went as an intention into my life by stating exactly what I want. Like, I want to create workshops or like combination of body and mind, travel the world. It's like, I want to write a best-selling book. I want to like all these things. So I did business school, and in business school, I already knew that I wanted that. This is why I left my career. Is I wanted to create a business that would resonate with who I am and would impact. That I knew. So when I went to business school, I basically negotiated that I was in a really good university, very famous university, and I wasn't happy there. And I decided to move to a less known university, but where teachers were successful businessmen that made millions, some of them. And I made a deal with them. I said, if I'm leaving a known university to a non-known one, I want to work in my business and not on some project. And they said, what's your business? I said, I'll have one by then. And they shook on it. So that's how it started. And, I created my first business and it was the Academy for Dance. And that's also what eventually got me to Cuba. And eventually, that led, if we look kind of like the evolution, it was like Dance Academy and then trips to Cuba and then a book and then a TED talk. And some of it had to do with the strategy that I was learning in business. So it was like, it's like, for example, oh, I want to go into like what I'm doing, but internationally. Oh, I want to get out of the market of dance and salsa and an international market. So these things that I was defining in business school, I was starting to like adjust it and change it. And over the years, I've worked so much with the body and with so many people that I started reading them. I could tell you in exactly 10 minutes how the person lives their life from the way they were dancing. And then I could shift a lot of that by changing how they use the body. So that was the base for somatic intelligence. And somatic intelligence is really about the wisdom inside of our body. We all have a wisdom. And when we know how to tap into this wisdom, breathe it, understand the messages, we live in a whole other way. So, like one of the things, for example, that I teach through somatic intelligence is how to process emotions and restore your nervous system from like heal it from trauma. I teach you how to get to your true nature so that anything that got hurt, we come back to natural flow, like the way you were born, so you can reach your peak performance. I teach you how to listen to your body and understand how it speaks to you and what it says and how to interpret it so that you actually don't get sick all the time and you keep balance. And like, so there's so much wisdom there inside of our body. And it really, when you think of the journey of how I started, I had no choice but to learn these things to kind of save me. But it's been like 25 years of investigation where I've learned so much that I understand a lot. It doesn't mean that I know everything. I have so much more to learn. I've got, to the day I die, I'm just the beginning, still at the beginning of understanding, but there's so much more to learn. So yeah.
Wow. And so when you speak about somatic intelligence, you touched on it very briefly as to what exactly it is. For people listening at home who've never seen your videos, how would you describe it? Because I think a lot of people would think of the Amy Cuddy style of, when you stand in a power pose and then it impacts your physiology. Would that be what somatic intelligence is?
So you're giving an example of the intelligence in our body, which means what Amy Cuddy talks about power poses. She talks about how when you're standing in a power pose, it changes the chemistry in the body, and as a result, it changes your behavior, and the result, it changes your the results in your life. So, for example, what she's teaching exists in what I call elegance. And when we hold our body in elegance, we're in a power pose, and in 2 minutes, that would change your confidence. So it's just one piece of something a lot bigger. It's a little wisdom inside of this whole thing.
Incredible. Can you tell us what somatic intelligence is? Because it's got stages, and like you said, that's just a small part.
Yeah. So somatic intelligence, actually, it's easier to see it visually. So somatic intelligence, that's the model, and it's also on the site. So we've got elegance, intention, tempo, sabrosura, which people don't know what it is, I'll explain in a minute, and mystery. And then each one of them has a benefit. So elegance is connected to confidence. Intention is to the meaning and drive. So the why we do things and then the drive towards it. Mm-hmm. Tempo is related to enjoyment. And then sabrosura is connected. Sabrosura is our sensuality. That sits on self-love, and this is connected also to motherly love, which is why this element is really important when we have a trauma, because that usually gets hurt. And then mystery is connected to playfulness, and that's where seduction is. When we look at all of this, this is our true nature. So when we're born, it's in the optimal. Like we have a dial, right? It's the optimal, each one of them. And when things happen in our lives, the dials come down. And when we say optimal, it's not an optimal that's an absolute one for everybody, but it's a subjective thing. So it goes according to your life stage, what age you are, what's going on in your life, you're married, you're not, you're like, what stage in your life, your cultural identity. Like we talked just a little bit about your cultural identity in South Africa and the apartheid that affected how you meet these elements. And then we've got our self-identity. So who I am as a person, and if I'm gay or heterosexual, or what's my religious view on life and what values I got at home. So these affect them. And then we're looking for the optimal to basically restore it back to natural flow. So if we look at, intention is my strongest element. I mean, perseverance we've seen is definitely something that I'm very strong with, right? And then my two weakest elements are elegance and sabrosura, which is why I've worked on them so hard over the years, because I knew that they were my weakest. Seduction comes natural to me, like anything that has to do with seduction. And then I definitely know how to enjoy life. So these were my weakest ones. So I've been doing most of my work on elegance and sabrosura, which is why it feels to you like they're very much all in alignment. So we tend to really invest in the ones that come easy to us, and we need to invest in the ones that don't. So yeah.
Oof. I love that chart, and I'm actually going to connect it to the show notes as well, so that people can go to your website and see it. And you spoke about cultural identity and gender and how you identify. So with body movement, at least in my experience, I find that men don't tend to think that this is something for them particularly. So is somatic intelligence exclusively for women, or can men do it too? Do they also have sabrosura and elegance and those kind of elements?
First of all, it's for men and women. It completely 100%. And I think that the best way to say it is go to Cuba and see men. They are super embodied in all these 5 elements, but they're embodied in masculine, and the women are embodied in feminine. So I can show you right now a video of a Cuban man who is a dancer, who is so delicious. You're going to fall off your. He's also black, and you'll probably like him even more. So he's so delicious. He is so masculine, and his sabrosura, male sabrosura, is so strong that all the women that see him like, whoo, 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 whoo. Like, oh my god. Yeah, exactly. When men are fully embodied in their masculinity, and they possess and really own their male sabrosura, oh my god, you're in trouble, woman. And I keep saying that the sabrosura for men and women as a force against each other is like the Jedi force. When they go like, when you see sabrosura, it's kind of like, and you kind of get lost. Like, okay, what just happened? Where's the door?
Anyone have water?
Yeah. And I will also add, and this is really cool, because of the world that we live in today, because we're talking about gender, a guy contacted me not too long ago, and he asked me if he could come to the retreat that we're doing in Havana. That specific retreat is for women only, specifically, so we can just dive into the feminine energy. And we have another retreat that's for men and women. That's something really different. And I said to him, because when he said to me, I said, it's only for women. He said, oh, that's not fair. I said, why are you saying that? I said, because he said queer, which is basically gay. So I said to him, I'm willing to go on a call with you and explore if it's a good fit. Because if a man would come and he's really gay and he's all feminine and he feels really comfortable in the high heels, I have no problem with him coming and learning the girl stuff. Like, bring it on. But then we got on a call and he's in a transition and he's trying to figure himself out. That will not land well. And that's what I said to him. I said, you can come when you land. Like, that's just going to be too awkward for women to have a man who hasn't transitioned bringing that in. It's not what we do there.
Hmm. Wow. And I mean, I've seen a lot of your videos, and there's this like beautiful, I'm not even going to attempt it because my hands are not, I'm not going to do that.
You mean
Oh
you
my
mean
God. It's so
like
beautiful. It's so beautiful. And again, it lends to your femininity and this elegance and this seduction. But tell me something, for women who live in countries whereby, because I live in South Africa, we've got some of the highest gender-based violence statistics in the world. And you know, if a woman is trying to learn the art, you know, of seduction, sabrosura, elegance, and they live in a country where it's dangerous, maybe it's war torn, maybe it's just a country like mine, what do you suggest for them? Do you teach them how to level it up and bring it down so that it's something that they can control and bring it out when they want to?
You know, when I was in business school, they one time brought somebody into the class and she came, you know, only, you know, like from the Emirates, dressed so that you can only see her eyes. And she was explaining how women in that culture, because you see only their eyes, how they're flirt and the eyes and the angle and they play. And it was just so stunning. And here's an example for you where it wouldn't be necessarily what we see in Cuba that's like all like using your body and stuff, but it kind of adjusts. We kind of prepare people as they leave, for example, a retreat towards what it means to meet their culture and what's possible and not and what it would do for them and how to handle this when that happens. Because every culture is different. And yet in your own home, you can still be whatever you want. And you can always move to another country if you decided that this is not good anymore for the way you want to live your life, which is another option.
I really like that. It's about, again, taking back your power, which is what somatic intelligence is, right? It almost reframes your perspective on life, which is going from this mentality of life is happening to me, everything happens at me, versus I have the power. And I love
life
that
is happening for me.
life
is happening for me. Yeah. Yeah, and we can choose. The thing is not to sit and be, and I think this is what you're kind of picking up on, not to be the victim of the situation. And if you can change it, change it. If you cannot, make the best out of it, but don't sit. You know, I said for a lot of years in Canada, and I wasn't happy there. And it's not that it's a bad country. Canada gave me so many amazing options, but it just wasn't resonating with who I am the way, let's say, Cuba resonates with me. And I wasn't feeling comfortable. And there was a point where I had to say to myself, Chen, if you take yourself out of the situation, Canada is perfect. And when you come, Canada sucks. The problem is with you and not with Canada. So either accept that this is what it is, and even if you don't have a better choice and you're not happy right now, find a way to be happy or find a way to leave.
wow, that is profound. That is incredibly profound, because I think sometimes we make up excuses for ourselves, right? And we're like, this country's terrible. The people in the country are terrible, everything. And then you start doing that self-analysis, which not a lot of people tend to want to do because it's uncomfortable confronting yourself in that way. And the fact that you had that ability to say, oof, in Cuba, I feel alive. I feel at home. And in Canada, maybe not so much, which brings me to Cuba. What was it about Cuba that you...
Before you go to Cuba, because there's one thing I think that's really important for people to understand about what you said, is that it's important to keep it real and say, you know, it's a process. First, I bitched for 5 years about the fact that I couldn't stay in Canada. Then I realized that. It's also for people not to judge themselves if it takes them a while to get there. That's really important.
Oh, thank you for putting that in there. Thank you for the clarity. And I think, especially in the time we're living in now, right, it's very difficult for people to make big life decisions because of restrictions and where we find ourselves. Coming back to your love affair with Cuba, what was
your love affair with Cuba? yeah. Let's do this.
What is it about Cuba that just spoke to your soul?
You know, there's a thing in Spanish that they say, La Habana me llama. Cuba is calling me. Cuba was calling. I just responded. So I didn't really know what it was, but yeah, Cuba was definitely calling. And, you know, being the person that I am, I could not respond. So I went. And I thought at the beginning that it was about the seduction. I really thought it was about the seduction, which is why I did a TED talk with 10 million views about the seduction. I was like, oh my God, it's about the seduction. That's what it's about. But, doing the TED talk, I realized over time that the TED talk and what I talked about was just a firework. And what I really found in Cuba was a lot more profound. And what kept bringing me back was what I found that could heal my body from the trauma in a somatic way. So every trauma that we have, some of it is held cognitively in the mind and some of it is held in the body. And, as I was working with the sabrosura and the other elements, something was changing in me and something was healing in me. And it took a long time. Like I would learn something would get better, and I would come back to Cuba and it would regress, and I didn't understand why. And I was coming and going and trying to understand. And eventually, like I started really investigating what they were teaching me and what these things were and why they were healing my trauma. And I was curious to know, like, would I be able to use it somewhere else and other people and other cultures? And so there was such a fascination. It started with just feeling things, learning how they move and learning how they hold their bodies. And Cubans can't really a lot of times explain to you what it is because it's something that starts from a very young age and they don't even think about it. I'm sure you have things like that in South Africa. You go like, oh, I don't even know how to explain that to you. It's just who we are. And someone from the outside will be able to start explaining it. And I think that was the kind of like gave me that edge, is to start going like, what is that? And how do you feel inside? And what does that mean? And it took a long time to ask the right questions. After 10 years, I formed the right questions. And then every time I would ask them the right question, they were like, claro, of course. I go, but it's not clear. Stop saying it's clear. It's not. It took me 10 years to get here, bloody hell. Like, how can you say it's clear? But to them, it's so clear. It's like, it's transparent. So they don't know how to teach you this. They don't know how to give you the words. I go like, how didn't I hear about the word sabrosura 10 years ago? It's only when I asked the right questions that the answers started coming out. And that's how I found this, but I found this first and foremost because of what I was feeling. Because like every time I saw this sabrosura, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I want that. And then when I felt it in my body, I was like, oh, wow, what is that? Like, I want more of that. Like, how do I get to that? I remember this one time I was being trained and we were doing 3 hours of this one motion, this and this. And it's like and they were just getting super accurate. And it's like, and then at the end, kind of like turning a little bit. And there was like this softness in it. And it's like, I swear to God, the first time I hit the right thing was about an hour doing this. And then we started like moving. I was like, oh my God, I feel like Cleopatra, like I could have anything. And I was like, don't lose it, don't lose it. And of course I lost it as soon as I was in my head. And then another hour to get to it. I was like, oh, what is this thing? Like, what is this thing? Give me more. So I was just coming and training and feeling. And once it started getting stronger, when I started feeling like I wasn't regressing all the time and I could hold it, I was also kind of investigating why it was regressing for me. Why couldn't I hold it? And it was linked to the trauma. So I wasn't, how could I feel good about myself when I felt still hurt in many ways inside? That I got to this amazing, beautiful thing, but it feels hurt, so it feels inauthentic, and then you kind of shrink back into where you're hurt. So it was such an amazing journey for me. And one of the, I think it started with being really scary and turned into something really exciting that would take me into like in front of doors inside me that I've never seen before. And it's like this show, like, what do you want? Door 1, 2, or 3? And you don't know what's behind it. And you're like, I don't want to open the door. I don't. And it's a metaphor because we would go into it through a feeling, through a dance that I've never experienced or dare go there. Like super vulnerable, for example, really, really feminine and like to the point, like they're almost naive, and it would be so scary to go there. And it's like door number 2, and you go like, ah. And most of the time there's a smoke screen. You're so terrified, like you're gonna die. You're so afraid of what you don't know. And when I started walking through these, at first it was hard. My whole body would be in pain, like things that would release from the trauma. And I've learned over time. And every time they said at the door, I said, "Which one do you want first?" I would just surrender, like, "Okay, let's go." And then I opened all of them one by one, till you know yourself and you discover that there's nothing to be afraid of because it's just you. Whether you like something about yourself or not, it's still just you. And if you want self-love, you just have to accept all those parts and go like, all of it is me, and give them a big hug, because you can't chop an arm. You can't chop a part of you. So I got to really meet myself full on. So that the next journey that came after that was the into the unconscious parts.
Oof, that was just, there's so many moments where I just felt my hair standing. And because I think it just resonated so deeply. And I think so many people struggle with that, struggle with coming, and it comes back to what you said in the beginning, coming home to yourself. And when you were so afraid of these different doors and you realize how much trauma was carried in the body. And it actually takes me back to a Paris Hilton documentary that just came out. And I think Nikki Hilton said something along the lines of, they say that the mind may forget, but the body never does. And I think that is very true with trauma. And I think that's where somatic intelligence is so incredibly profound. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Having used somatic intelligence, if someone is at home and saying, Chen, I want to, heal myself. I've gone to a therapist for 10, 20, 30 years. And I feel like sometimes I hit the same wall because I hear that all the time. I hear that with trauma all the time. And so what would you say to that person?
A couple of things. First of all, that working through the body is a lot more powerful than through the mind because we understand faster through the body than through the mind. You say to a child, don't touch that thing. That's fire. You're going to hurt. Don't touch it. They don't never felt it. They'll touch it. But, ow! Next time they don't touch it. It's not what you said. It's what they felt. You say to someone, falling in love is amazing. They never felt falling in love. It's like, One time they feel that, they get it. We get things faster through the body than through the mind. And that's part of what gets some people stuck with therapy, that it's through the mind. A great method for therapy that's also somatic is family therapy system. So if people want to do therapy, I highly recommend doing that one because they work with unconscious parts through guided dialogue with your unconscious parts that kind of are there to protect you. It's an amazing system. Doing therapy that's not just about talking. And this is not to put down any therapist. There are amazing therapists there that do amazing work, even just by talking. But I personally, this is a personal preference, I prefer to work through the body because I get faster results, because my body understands faster. So like, for example, when I'm healing trauma, I'm working with a method that's not my own for that part. It's by someone else called Thomas Hubel, who's from Germany. And what I do is I take a person into my nervous system and I connect our nervous system. And then I can feel what goes on in your body. And then I can hold really unconditional space for you, really wide space for anything that would come up emotionally. And through different coaching sessions, create enough safety for you to start tapping into those layers that you've never gone into. And that's where the trauma sits. Because you normally lock those areas because something happened and it wasn't safe because no one felt it with you at that time to help you process it. So it got stuck, it got frozen. So you're blocked in that area. And when we can get to those layers gradually and safely and have enough of a safe container that's big enough to bring out anger and shame and whatever is coming, sadness, fear, like whatever is there, grief, like anything, and I can hold that space. You can be angry now, like want to bash something, and I'm just holding that space for you and feel it with you. Your nervous system will feel me feeling you, and then the body starts to process the emotion naturally. That's just the mechanism of the body, and it starts to discharge. And that's how we restore the nervous system into a natural state, because what was supposed to happen there is societies were not so sick. Societies are sick. We're raising kids that need to overcome their childhood. We're raising kids that need to overcome their childhoods. Almost everybody gets hurt. So if we can give a felt experience, what are we trying to do, Constance? Fix things for everybody. Fix. People don't need things to be fixed. They need to be felt. Take a child who's crying, and hold them and rock with them and rub their back a bit. That's a lot more powerful than trying to talk to them and negotiate. Not to say that that's not okay for certain places, but we need the felt experience of the grandmas that were there, that were not working, that had all this emotional capacity, and they just held space for you to be you and to be where you are. That's what it was. Before we went into mothers are working too, and nobody has emotional capacity and all that. So we can restore the nervous system. I restored my nervous system. I've gone through this. Anything that I'm teaching, I've gone through first. If it works on my trauma, it's going to work on yours because mine is really deep. And I want to say one more thing about that. So the body, I said to you before, and I agree with that, my mind was okay, but my body still held the trauma when I came to Cuba. And then I was working on over the years to heal my body. But I will say also one more thing that I think is really interesting is that I can't say that I fully got rid of the trauma. I'm in a great place, but but I never stopped learning. I want more. I constantly want more. And I want to find more wisdoms, any wisdom out there. I mean, I lived in Japan and studied Zen Buddhism, and I lived in a short time in Australia, and so much in Cuba and in Canada. And I'm searching and searching. I started spending time with the shamans, the real shamans that have the knowledge that came through 5,000 years, and from generation to generation. And it's the first time I'm hearing a culture that knows how to release fully through plant medicine the trauma. And I've done last year plant medicine for 4 days, and it hasn't released, but that was in a big group. And then I had a conversation with somebody who's recommended by one of the most respected shamans in the world today. He sent me to this older mama, shamanic mama. And I had a conversation with her. Thank God I speak Spanish. And, and I understood 80% of what she said. And she said to me, she called it punto, the point. There's a point where it releases fully. So we're gonna put like to be continued because I'm waiting for Corona to be over to test it.
Wow. And there's something you actually said, and it just stuck out in my mind. And I'm like, this is a tweetable moment. And you said things need to be felt and not fixed. And I think that is so profound. I think that is so powerful because that's something I try and tell people consistently, which is, I love positivity. I absolutely love it. I love people having a great mindset, and I think it's important. You should cultivate gratitude. However, I'm not for spiritual bypassing. I don't think it's healthy for people to feel anger, feel pain, feel sadness, feel breakups, whatever it may be, and be like, no, I'll be fine. I'm okay. And I'm like, that's just like putting a Band-Aid over, a pain point. Because eventually it's going to fester and it's going to come to the surface. And you're so right by saying so many of us in our moments of pain, and I think that's trauma universally. In our moments of pain, there was no one there to just hold us and say, it's okay. Just feel it.
And not even just feel it. Let's feel it together. Right? If let's say you're sad now and you're coming and you're kind of sad. And I even say to you, like, just feel it. It's not the same as I go like, let's feel it together for a minute. Let's be with that. Let's breathe into that. That's a lot more powerful than me kind of going like, so why are you sad? And tell me about it and what you're really doing. Here's a little tip I think is really important for people. You start asking people about what they feel. They tell you about what they think, not what they feel. They go like, I feel that I'm lost. That's not a feeling. You're thinking that you're lost. Your body is never lost. What you're really feeling is you're feeling conflicting emotions and emotions that you don't know how to define or how to process. And you're sitting with that and you don't know what to do with it. So people will say, I'm confused, I'm lost. You're not confused and you're not lost. You're just uncomfortable. So when we talk body and we start to communicate, this is somatic intelligence. When we start to be with the body and we start to understand this, we go like, okay, so when you're saying, I feel lost, what are you actually feeling? And then we'll take the emotions of fear and anger and sadness and joy and calmness and numbness and shame. And we'll go like, what are you actually feeling right now? And what sensations are in your body? And as you start to go through the journey, then we start to really discover what is going on inside you. So like I'm working with a client right now and she just could not go to her emotions. Every time I asked her about emotions, she would go to sensations. She's trained a long time in all sorts of somatics and she knows how to define every somatic sensation in her body. I go, so what are you feeling right now? And she'll go back to sensations. And then I just said to her, I said, let's stop for a second, okay? She said, okay. I said, let's recognize how unsafe it was in your family to feel emotions, that's not accessible to you easily, and we're not judging that. And she just went like said, let's be with that for a minute. I got goosebumps. And by doing that, It took us about 40 minutes. She landed into her emotions. It was that unsafe when someone can't. I want to cry now when I say this because this goes so deep for me when I see that she cannot access her emotions. And this is, by the way, a very common thing for people. When someone can access their emotions, that's the body showing us. That's the wisdom that I'm talking about. How unsafe it was. If it was safe, then you would easily access your emotions because if the child comes, you cry, you laugh, like it comes easy. We don't have to work hard to express our emotions. It flows completely natural. What comes after is what creates it. So if somebody can't go into their emotions, it was that unsafe. And when we start to respect the mechanism in the body, we have to respect that because the body was so smart, so smart. The people who survived things that were difficult, the body was so smart to guide them to shut that down because the nervous system would have fried. And the ones that didn't have that ability, not of their fault, you see them in mental hospitals, people that went to addictions, people that could not protect what was there. The ones who shut down have a trauma, they managed to survive. So we have to guide through that body and let the body guide us through that. I had a client that came to work with me. And in the first session that we did, and I really feel the somatics when I'm someone doing the somatic intelligence assessment. And she was talking, and every once in a while she started to go like, and I was like, what was that just now? And she goes, I stutter. And I go, okay, when does that happen? And she explained, and I noticed that it was connected to every time she got really intense emotions for something, any kind of emotion. Wasn't specific emotion. Anytime it was intense emotion, she would start to stutter. So I asked her about that. I said, when did that start? And we found the root cause. Her mother left her when she was 4 years old to take care of her grandmother, but it was like an abandonment because she freaked out. When she came back, her mother wasn't able to hold her anxiety. So it was like really being abandoned. Your mother leaves, you're 5 weeks, you're 4 years old, you're freaking out, and then she comes back, she can't hold you and just say, it's okay. And then the stutter started. And here's the really interesting thing. So I kind of included that. Okay, so that's part of the container to make room for you, that it's okay for you where you are stuttering. And then she would talk, and there was a moment where I felt her, and I was like, and I started, I said, can you allow your emotions? She started stuttering. I said, can you allow your emotions right now? Like, can you allow yourself? What are you feeling right now? And the minute she allowed her emotions to flow, the stutter disappeared. So did you notice that your stutter disappeared? So over the session, I did that a couple of times. And I said, this is your body showing us that it's just about, you've learned with all, like she had about two or three different traumas, that as things happen, you've learned to protect. And this came as a somatic thing of like, enough, like I can't take it. Her nervous system was so nervous inside, she started stuttering it out instead of shaking inside, like I'm stuttering out. It's an expression of that anxiety. And you're a child, you can't have enough room in your nervous system to hold it. So in her family, she wasn't allowed to express emotions. She was constantly being pushed, like, can express this and can express that for the cultural context that she had and what was expected in the family and so on. So repressing more and more feelings made her stutter. So as soon as we started working on allowing, giving herself permission to feel, the stutter started disappearing.
Wow.
And all of this information, this is the wisdom of the body.
Oof. I mean, I am speechless because there's so many points you touched on. And as you were speaking, I just feel like the hair at the back of my neck, on my arms. And I didn't know this information. It's the first time I'm learning. And what you said about the stutter, I find so fascinating because I only just discovered, I think it was a few weeks ago, that my trauma response is laughing. So when I'm in a very anxious situation, or it's okay, it doesn't sound as creepy as like but it's more in a case of if I'm very nervous or I feel like I'm about to be too vulnerable or whatever the case is, I go to laughing. And I used to think to myself, like, why am I doing this? And people, of course, don't know, so they would just find it charming or fun, And I learned that was my way of adapting when I was a child, and trauma would happen, or I'd witness it. my only thing would be to either joke with my younger brother to protect him, to make sure that he's okay. And it would just turn to laughing. And as I've grown older, that has become my response, where if I don't want to answer something, for example, on a date, or I'm doing an interview and someone asks me something really hard hitting, I'm really good at laughing and redirecting. You know? now, now it's like, is she laughing?
That's good.
You know? So I mean, that's just mind blowing. And I for one, I'm still going to, make sure that I work with you at some point, because as you said, I'm also a seeker, and I'm someone who constantly wants to know more and to heal myself more and to learn more about my body and my, how I move through the world. And I want you to tell us a little bit about that. You have a retreat coming up. And could you tell us what that retreat is about, where it's going to be, some of the details, so that people can get in touch and perhaps go?
Yeah, so there are two things happening. So the retreat is supposed to be in May, but we're waiting because of COVID to see if we're going to run it. So we're going to reevaluate at the beginning of the year. We're not going to start selling it until we see that it's safe enough to go, because we want to make sure everybody's okay. But the retreat is sensational. So what we do is all this wisdom that I talked about, that retreat is just for women. And we work on embodying our femininity for female leaders. And everybody has to go through an interview and to see where they are. We make sure that we don't damage people. It's so powerful. This program is so powerful. You go through such a shift that we need to make sure that you have a strong enough foundation. And if not, then you have to go through coaching ahead of time to heal some of that base to be able to go through that. So it's not something that you can just go on the site and register into. So I basically poured into it all this journey that I've gone through so many years into 1 week. And the beauty of it is that we drop you into the body from day one, and then you're working through the body for 7 days. And we teach you how to embody elegance and intention and tempo and the sabrosura and mystery. And we teach you how to completely shift. I have a video of one of the courses, the way they came in and the way they came out. It's like, wow. When you see the shift, it's like, I call it like lionesses coming out, like, wow. It's like, they're amazing, like so powerful. And as we do this, things come up. So if I throw you into your body and now I'm holding you there in a place that has full self-worth and is like your full intention going after your dreams, and the sabrosura is out and we're touching all these places, and I'm bringing out your enjoyment and we're teaching you how to seduce, like everybody's going to hit a point where something comes out. And for that, I bring in a coach that does what I do, somatic, the somatic healing part. And we meet you right there to do the part where I said we connect the nervous system to like heal it in that spot, so that we meet you there. And as things come out through the cracks, if not, then I put you into self-worth. And now you have, a limiting belief or something from the trauma where you think I'm not deserving, and you want to shrink back. Because who wants to be in elegance when you feel inside like this? Right? The conflict between what you feel about yourself inside and where we put you brings it out. And in the breakdown, we heal it. So then we take you through a full week. It's nonstop. Like there's nothing else that you're going to do. Like from morning till night, we start 8 o'clock in the morning. We finish around 6 at night. And it's like full days. The last 3 days are shorter because it's like there's only so much retention. But we also go to dance salsa, and we go in all the American cars in the 50s. And if it's in the summer, we go to the beach. And yeah, because enjoyment, as you know, is one of the key things in anything we do. So it's also one big party. And, we've got, this is the only place in the world where you can do this kind of a program. And we have 20 women, selected women, and 10 instructors. 10 instructors. You don't get this anywhere in the world. So we really work on you and like really refine what you're doing, give you so much attention till you truly shift. And then we prepare you to leave for the real world and what that would be like. And one of the things I love about the program, this is something the Cubans used to do with me when I came training, is that we take you to the streets to train on the culture. So if I want you to see if your sabrosura or your seduction works, we'll go to an agro where you buy vegetables, and now it's like you're going like, hi, and I want this and that. You'll see the prices go down. And it's not about whether you want to bring the prices down. It's about that feedback and that interaction. And if a woman gets scared of that, that, okay, we need to work on that, right? Because now she's afraid to come as a woman, because when you're just a woman and you're in a space that's really safe, and in Cuba it's safe, and will not attack you, so you can show up in your full power and femininity and all that. And they go like They're like, they know how to hold the space for all of this yumminess, without even receiving anything. Like, that's their elegance. So it's the perfect playground to try this. And, when women said to me, but what if I'm married? We're not asking you to do anything with anyone. Like, to hold your power is to be able to hold it and not necessarily give it, but to feel it. So it's an amazing playground. This is how they taught me. They would send me on the street with a mini skirt and go like, I need to learn how to embody pride. And I didn't know how to bring pride out. I felt proud inside, but not outside. So they sent me on the street for an hour in a mini skirt. And they said, you have to walk slow. You have to let all the things that men say to you in, and you just got to let it in. You got to feel it. And an hour later, I came out. I was like Miss Sunshine, walking around like I own the country. Like, hello, hi, I'm here. It's like I learned how to embody pride and not lessen. So I love Cuban homework. I'm a big fan. So I give them all sorts of homework. And when we do assignments on the streets, because we're 10 instructors and 20 students, it's 2 students per instructor. So you're never by yourself. You're being guided by someone, and you're never like, okay, am I in a dangerous place? You never are. So you're held, and really, like, we created kind of a place. You just got to lean into us and let us do the thing. We take care of everything from projection aspect. We take care of the healing. We take care of the classes. We take care of the food. We take care of everything you need. All you have to do is show up and do the work. And then transition, and you see the shift. It's amazing to see them shift in 1 week to something completely different. And then the work starts because, like going to the gym, you can go to the gym and get a trainer and work for a whole week and get your 6-pack. And then you're going to go like, I'm going to go home and stop for 3 weeks. And definitely I'm going to keep my abs. Bye-bye abs, right? Like, then the work starts to sustain that. So they can do, continue with the online program, for example, and practice with it. And but the trick is to keep working on this. And we've seen a lot of people that do that. And then it sustains. You go like, wow, gorgeous. It's just, So I'm giving it away. And I said, I want to share that. It's not mine to keep. It's for us to all have. And the reason I'm focusing on change makers and leaders is because I want this to be a ripple effect. I want women that are working with other women and have the power to embody this and teach this forward to come and learn. It's not about going like, oh my God, like she could copy it from me. Come copy. Like, that's the thing. Like, how are we going to impact the world in a big way if I'm keeping it to me? I want the women that can learn this, embody this, and pay it forward to take it. And there's a woman who was in the course last year, and she came and she became, I think I saw, what was it? She became some kind of a coach, teaching people how to have elegance in their lives. And it was just, I looked, I was like, woohoo, like just cheering on, because yeah, let's see what you do with it. Like, amazing.
That sounds good. And I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I need to figure it out because I need to try and get there. Like, I need to shift my life around.
You need to be there.
I'm like, how can I work this out in my head? And literally, as you were speaking, I was just like, okay, if I move this and I do that. And so for women who can't be on that retreat, what other things can they, learn from you or access you or be coached by you?
So there's so many. So first of all, this coming Sunday, I know that the interview is coming out on Friday, right? So this coming Sunday, we have a free masterclass for women where I'm going to teach the sabrosura. And I'm going to give people a taste of the 5 elements, but I'm going to highlight more of the sabrosura. And that's going to be free. When people want to find out what we're doing, they can go to Facebook and join my group, Wisdom of the Sabrosura. And if they don't know how to find it, don't remember the name, unless you want to put it in the notes, then they can also go to my fan page and just click on join group, which we have a button. So we announce all these things in our exclusive group, and we're really curated to quality women like you. And so there's a link to the free masterclass, and people can come and join. They can do the online program. We have an online academy on the site, and they can take the online program, which is sets an amazing foundation for those women who cannot come and do it. The masterclass is actually live with me. So that's really cool. And that's because we're planning on launching 5 classes live with me. They're going to be over 5 weeks. And of course, people can come and work with me also one-on-one. So all they have to do is go on the site, book a discovery call, fill out the questions, and end up with me. And then I'll be happy to coach them one-on-one.
Oh, and I genuinely say this from the bottom of my heart when I say, I think so many people would benefit from accessing your work, coming to these free master classes, which you're so gracious to give, because this wisdom is something I think all of us need. I think, 2020 has been a very difficult year for almost every person. I haven't spoken to one person who has sailed through it. And, taking this kind of wisdom to invest in yourself and say, I want to be better. I want to be the best version of myself. I want to lead from a place of power, and you giving us those tools. I mean, I am deeply grateful, and I'm pretty sure everyone listening is. So thank you.
Thank you. I want to say something about what you said about the situation this year, because I think that's really important. So one of the things that somatic intelligence can really help people in this year is what people are missing is emotional resilience. And the emotional resilience, one of the reasons people are freaking out this year is because with the pandemic and stopping and having to be still, what happens is that all of your emotions surface, everything that was blocked, and especially that you're feeling collective trauma. So it surfaces even stronger. So in a sense, I like to say that the pandemic has signed us all to a retreat, but 95% of the population is resisting this retreat. So, and they're resisting it because they don't have the tools. So you don't know, people who are not used to it don't know how to process emotions, how to move through the uncomfortable emotions. They think they're going to get stuck there. So they'd rather shove it and shut it down, and then they can't because you stop. There's nothing to do that you can numb it. So one of the things that I did actually during this time is I developed this amazing, I'm not saying it's amazing because I think it's amazing because I'm seeing the results with all the people that are taking it, what they're saying, because I'm seeing the shift in their lives, like truly developing an unshakable core. And this is like a program with all the somatic practices from breathing to meditation to working on your somatic imprint and healing some of the somatic imprint and how to heal traumas and embodying the 5 elements of somatic intelligence. All of it is in the program, and it's for men and women, and it's also in our online academy. And I think that if people had better tools for coping with what is going on, if you can cope with what is going on this year and you have the tools, then you're ready for just about anything that will happen in your life. So it's really a program for developing an unshakable core, because I feel like I have an unshakable core now. So I'm teaching how to do it. And I'm not keeping anything back. I'm teaching all the good stuff that I'm using with my executive clients and everything. It's really an amazing program.
Oh, man. And all of this can be found on your website, which I'm going to link in the show notes. So if they want to come, they go onto your website and they look for, is it called something in particular for this?
It says Online Academy. And then when you click on the Online Academy, it says Emotional Resilient Essentials. Okay. But inside of the Online Academy, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Because I think so many people could use that, because I think that's where people have been shaken this year, where, so much has changed, right? Everything is in flux now. No one can say like, I built my life on a solid foundation. Everyone's kind of shaky. And I think what you say, uncertain.
Uncertain. There's constant uncertainty. There's nothing to hold on to. So you need an unshakable core inside to be able to deal with the shakiness. But if there's shakiness outside and there's shakiness inside, you're going crazy.
Oh my gosh. I could speak to you for hours, because everything you've got to say just hits the nail on the head. I love it. So before we close off, there's one thing I really want to know. And that is, if you could go back in a time capsule and you could speak to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I was asked this question not too long ago, and I'm going to say the same answer I said. It's interesting because it was the first time someone asked me this. I think the biggest thing I want to say to my younger self is that I'll be okay. I was so not okay, and I was so stressed out about being so what I considered lost and broken. And I say this because I know now that's not lost and it's not broken. It's just a lot of emotions that you don't know what to do with and how to process. And I just felt so many, really so bad. And I was rejected so many times by so many people. And I got hit so hard, and it was a thing after a thing after a thing. And it just felt like going down constantly. I said it before, till I hit rock bottom. But even when I came out of that and fighting, and it's like, just to know I'm going to make it. I'm really going to make it. You can relax. Don't worry. It's okay. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to get there. The stress that I spend freaking out. What if, we're so afraid that when we don't get there, what if I, what I said to myself, what if I never make it? like that fear that you're fighting and fighting and fighting, it's never going to work. And if I just knew that it would have worked, the whole journey would have been different.
Wow.
Yeah. Right? You know what I mean? It's like, I need to drink that some water.
No, I think that is a collective lesson. I think so many people listening at home, you've hit so many pain points that people have gone through, but I think you've also given us so much to reflect on, so many things that, at least on a personal level, I didn't even think of and I didn't even consider, because I think because they're not in your realm of reality or in your scope of reality, you're not aware of it, so you're not going to fix it. But now that you've mentioned it, there's so many things I'm thinking to myself, wow, there's still work to do, and it's going to be an exciting journey.
And for you specifically, it's really interesting because of where you come from, right? So just the fact that you lived in a place where there's an apartheid and there's a collective trauma and there's an imprint in the family through that, through what happened. And you're a Black woman, so it's a different story than a white woman in South Africa, and definitely in those years. So there's an imprint there that's impacting. And what's really interesting is that when we go into that imprint, we start to feel into that and into your past generations, there are things that got passed you don't even know that got passed, for good and for bad. And when we start to feel into that, it's like, whoo, you start to really unpack some of these things and to heal some of the things that were probably are still holding you back in certain areas. I mean, I can tell you're in peak performance and you're doing amazing. And there's still places, because we all keep growing, as you said before, where we can dig deeper and discover more. And that's when something suddenly opens up and becomes available that wasn't before. Like, whoa, something like that happened to me about 2 years ago. And with all the work that I've done, I discovered this new method and I went in and I was like, whoa, like this whole thing just shifted completely. I was like, oh, amazing.
Wow. I think I could have done this whole interview just going, wow.
I just love you. You're my new sister. Can I adopt you as a sister? I don't have
Please,
a sister.
please. I would be honored. It would be my honor. And Chen, if there's anything I haven't asked you or that you haven't touched on or that you'd like to leave us with, please let me know.
Yeah, I think what I just want to say, specifically for women, and let me say something for men before I say specifically for women. I think for men, there are a lot of men that are afraid of their sensuality. Men are, when I work with men, I see how much, like, it's really interesting because men have a harder time connecting with their emotions most of the time because that was considered a weakness. So when you say feel and they know what that means, sometimes you have to teach a man what it means to connect to these feelings. Like there's another bridge that needs to be built. Not all men, but you see that is that you have to kind of like teach them how to stop and what that is and what it means to feel before they even know what they're looking for. Because they're so in the mind. We're all so in the mind now. And the energy is here. And we got to bring it back to the body. And men are sometimes afraid of tapping into the sabrosura of fear of being too feminine or considered weak. And like I said before, it's actually an amazing strength when a man can be so masculine and touches and get in contact with his male feminine side. It's just gorgeous. So for the men to know that that's damn sexy, not a weakness, damn sexy. Yeah, exactly. And that women value men that do the internal work, that are present and not absent, that can dig deep and be able to pinpoint what they're really feeling and not shut down what is in front of them and go to the mind. Women value that. And it doesn't mean that you have to go lovey-dovey and, but to be that accurate with yourself, to be that in alignment with yourself, that's really impressive for a woman. And for the women is to say, one of the things that I see a lot in women is we see it more and more when women go into the business world and they're in an environment that's dominated by men and men treat their femininity as a weakness. And then women start to switch to male energy and they become afraid of tapping into their vulnerability. And that's a deep coming back home when a woman starts to understand that her power cannot be managed in a masculine way because it exhausts her. but she needs to come back to her feminine and learn how to use her intention and elegance to have full power, and then bring her softness when she needs to actually soften the man there, the hard edge. Because the women used to like round those edges, and then when women became tougher too, who's the balancing act here? So when women come and they learn how to tap, for example, in the retreat, into their full power, but into their femininity, they become like goddesses. They are so powerful, but yet feminine, and they're not afraid of their femininity to express it and to use it, for example, to reduce conflict, to smooth things out in negotiations, to diffuse that ego. Men can get stuck in egos a lot of times. They'll like blow something up for their ego, blah blah blah. And a woman can come in a lot of times, and again, this is a little bit to separate a men like this or a woman like that. But let's not say men and women. Let's say feminine and masculine qualities would be more accurate. So when we come with feminine qualities, men and women alike, we're able to diffuse the situation. So a man who knows how to get off that ego, for example, and tap into that feminine quality and kind of go like put the ego aside and then kind of lead where it wants to and soften it. Women do that naturally. It's easier for them to do that when they're really tapped into their femininity. But when we're able to do that, we shift situations completely. So that's an incredible power to have. And women that operate out of male energy usually feel out of their skins and they're exhausted. So I wrote to myself to say, like, what are the things that most women struggle with? Being in their bodies, dropping into their bodies and really being embodied, expressing femininity, letting go of thinking, and showing vulnerability. Those are the things that come up the most for women.
Man, can we just speak for another hour, 3 hours, 10 hours?
Let's go. Can I bring wine back?
Yeah, we can.
Some music, wine, and we're good.
And you can dance, and I can learn. It's all going to work out.
You're from South Africa. You can teach me something about rhythm, I'm sure.
I don't think my country would vote me to be the representative for rhythm. I think we might cause a civil war, but that's okay. That's okay.
That's so good. That's so good. I'm telling you, you're my new sister. I'm adopting you to the family.
And consider me adopted. I want to again just thank you so much. Thank you for everything you've shared with us. I've learned so much, and I'm going to let you go now. Wow. There were so many incredible moments within this interview where I felt chills, where I learned so much, and so many quotes that I'm going to be reading over and over again. If you've liked this interview with Chen, which I'm sure you have, please be sure to go and join her Facebook group and access all the information in the show notes to find her and get a better perspective on your life, on your emotional body, and just live better and be more resilient. Thank you so much for listening, and I will speak to you soon.